I am unashamed. What about you?
I did an event this weekend around the Canton, Texas area. It was a metal detecting event. I wasn't sure.
During their big, like, whatever their hoo-ha days or whatever, they're like, all the people are there?
I'm not familiar with what the phrase hoo-ha.
Well, I just made that up. But it's some kind of, they have like certain days where all these people come to Canton and they're looking for these, whatever they're selling there. But they don't have, it's not open all the time.
This is, I'm with Garrett and I think it was the founder, Mr. Garrett, has gone on to be with the Lord, and this is like a memorial kind of honoring his memory for getting people started in this.
Okay.
Oh, it's really fun. I mean, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I got to start off the adult metal detecting run with firing a cannon. I mean, I walked up there, and this guy was looking, kind of like, I like the guy, but he looked like a carnival worker that had moved on.
Did he use
cannon shooting?
Did he maybe start out barking at the tilt-a-whirl and then he worked for the yak lady?
That's the feeling I got. Had kind of an old army coat on. He was, scruffy.
So he was at where?
We were in Canton, and we were gonna.
So why does everybody go to? A lot of people in the United States that probably don't even know what Canton is. Well, women tend to go there. What do they have there?
It's the biggest flea market in the South.
Coincidence? This had nothing to do. I think
that's what I was asking. Was it connected to that, or just happened?
They just found a big piece of real estate.
Okay.
Now look, they had all the stuff.
Flea market meaning I'm trying to still get the information.
Other people's junk, mostly, and then also some craftsmen will make new stuff. Like this where like it'd be a Skip. Skip Couillon would go there and set up a booth and sell his what he does. Some of it is new creative stuff, but a lot of it is just, quite frankly, it's a giant garage sale. Is what it looked like to me. Just a lot of old stuff and antiques and that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about miles.
So
it's like what's the website that sells all the handmade stuff? Is it Etsy?
Yeah.
Or is that Pinterest?
No, Josh said,
Etsy.
All right, we have to look to Josh to find out. We don't even know.
I actually have that stock, but I thought I'd get them mixed
no wonder
up. But so it's like that, but it's in person. People gather up for cause when I asked Missy about Kent, she's like, but she couldn't come. Yeah. She didn't want to do she was like, what do y'all do?
The women get it.
So everyone has their own junk. They survey their own junk, and then they in a daydreaming type stage, they're saying, other people may have what I have, and you go great distances to. Are they buying it, or they just looking at it?
Oh, they're buying it.
How does it get there to buy?
I have no idea. I guess people bring
how does the junk? Do you just drive up there and say, y'all selling junk? I got some.
Well,
do they pay for the junk that they're...
I'm saying all this. I've never been. I just heard about it. But I think these people are there all the time. And so then there's just new people and they have these booths.
I think we shouldn't be commenting on something we've never...
We are major speculators.
I was in the vicinity of there. Because I guarantee my wife...
I'm sure we got this all wrong.
She'll be rolling her out. Because look, she used to go with other women, a carload of them, and they would hoop and holler when they were planning
Well,
this.
and I've been through Canton a ton of times on I-20, and there's signs everywhere, park here, pull off this exit, extra parking here. So what happens in this little Texas town is a big deal whenever they have their thing.
Junk in the eyes.
It's not junk. Where are you
I'm trying to say? Y'all call it the flea market and the garage sale, but with some people, one person's junk is another person's treasure.
Right. That's right. And look,
I actually think they make stuff though.
They do, but they here's the thing that people love now, Dad. This is the favorite. So they'll take junk, it's old stuff, then they'll do stuff to it, and then people really get excited about that. And so an old piece of whatever, some piece of metal, this thing, that thing, and then they do things to it. They paint it, or they do this, they do that, and then because Lisa gets all excited about it, it's like, look at this. I mean, and I hear women talking, they'll say, "Oh, that's so cute. That looks so good." And I'm looking at it like it just has no effect on me at all.
But look, I
have no emotional.
I can help you with this because Missy, I felt the same way, and she was looking at me.
I just couldn't understand what all the excitement.
And she said, "Do you know how you feel before the night before opening day of duck season?" I said, "Yeah, what's that got to do with anything?" She said, "That's how I feel about going to this."
Really?
When she told me that, now I just say, go, hey, don't let me get in your way. Because if you try to get in my way on opening day, I'm like,
God has told me to never show favoritism. So with that in mind, when it gets to male and female, is it a male thing?
No, I think males do
the
this.
turning
also.
the junk into treasure, or is it a female thing?
I think it's
overall.
It's
I know some males
gender
that like
neutral.
it. Right.
We found a general neutral moment on this show. But I will say this: so I go out, I fire the cannon off. I lost, I'd say 30% of hearing in my right ear. Nobody gave me any ear. I would have said, "Here's some earplugs," because
I would have backed away.
Loud.
Oh
But it was fun. And so then everybody takes off because they have Garrett had put a bunch of stuff out there.
Losing your hearing is always a big blast.
I was going to say, I don't know that you had 30% days to give. I mean,
It's gone. I mean, it was an earring like I hadn't had.
This was where the junk is.
Well, we're back on this
question.
again. What they had put a few hundred like Indian head pennies and
so they planted treasure now?
Oh yeah, because they're just trying to get people into it, and so they had little tokens. Well, I didn't get the rules because I showed up 5 minutes before I shot the cannon. And
so this is like a big Easter egg hunt. So what y'all are doing
for adults, yeah.
Okay.
Then they had a kid one later. That's what it is. But you're using the metal detector and it's fun. But look, the stuff you found. I mean, to me, now you would say, huh, but I mean, I was excited. It was fun if you're into this. And they had 100 and something little tokens out there, but I didn't get the memo on this, so I don't know what's out there. Which embarrassingly, the first thing I found, because we're just out in a field by a lake, is a modern dime. But I looked and I was like, that they didn't put that here because I saw the imprintation in the dirt.
Yeah,
I was like, so I mean, I'm 10 cents up on the field right now, but I find this green-sided little round kind of silver looking medallion and it had a number on it. I was like, I don't know. I was thinking it came off a carrier pigeon or like a necklace, or I thought I am finding the weirdest stuff.
Pigeons wear necklaces? I didn't know that was a thing.
I couldn't make sense of this number.
If there is that big a quantity, I guess y'all are saying when you get there, if it's just like y'all are saying, you're looking a long way.
Oh yeah, this was several acres.
Yeah,
and look, it was wooded area. I mean,
if it's that much on top of the ground, it is really unimaginable what is under the ground underneath all this stuff.
Well, that's right.
I mean, if they're just piling it up and people are coming by and delivering it, I guess the money changing hands there, and then everybody says, "Well, I want that piece of junk." Well,
actually, what you find in the ground, you go down to the big Canton thing, and then you sell it down there. I guess that could work.
But what I did, I shot the cannon. I gave them about a 3 minute, because this wasn't like a church event. And so I gave a 3 minute.
Did you do like a little VIP meet and greet type thing?
Not really. Just during the day, because they had booths at the Civic Center. I mean, look, I took a lot of pictures with people and met people, and then they had the kids did. Theirs was funny. All their stuff was just on top of the ground. I mean, you could use your metal detector, or you could just reach down and pick it up. It's just a fun kind of, and when that's what my speech was about, was that anything that's good, clean fun, especially where hunting is involved,
right,
I'm in. And I did my little bit about we're out here in the creation. You know, we've had a tough year with the coronavirus and everybody being quarantined. I mean, this is something we can do outside
without a mask.
Yeah, without a mask. There was tons of people. I'd say there was probably 300 adults that took off through the woods. And it was fun. You found cool stuff. You found old stuff. And that little token that I thought was a carrier pigeon necklace, they put those out and it has a number, and you go to their booth and they have prizes.
Oh, you
for
redeem
finding
it.
And he just so happened. So I was trying to show him something else I found. And he was like, "Oh, you found a token." I was like, "Well, oh, you know what this is?" I was like, I thought it was off of a carrier pigeon. Of course, he said the same thing you did. He said, "Why? There's no necklace." It's like,
I just didn't know they wore jewelry. That's news to me.
I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I found a neon green sided thing with a number that I knew it didn't come off a cow. I was trying to figure out. That's part of the fun.
At 75, right at 75 years old, I must admit, Jase, I'm digging way back in my brain to see how I could come up with that, what you just participated as being fun. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too old, but I'm thinking, and it turns out to be fun.
Yeah.
How do you make fun out of
Jason's
it?
excited about it.
Oh, I'm excited. It's fun.
What'd you get for your token?
I got it was a infantry button from the Civil War. It was like in a case, and I'm assuming
So
after
they were
I do
giving
some
you stuff.
do some research. But look, they also like had a gold coin you could have gotten. You could have gotten a sword, and I mean like a relic. I mean it was really
great
nice. I
idea.
couldn't believe there wasn't thousands of people there.
Yeah.
I thought you just go find this stuff. Who doesn't like to dig in the dirt?
Well, Phil done 75 years.
I'll tell you a funny story before Phil.
I got one more thing before we get to
his
that.
weekend.
I got one more thing for you.
So I met this guy we did a kind of a, I don't know what you call it. I did a hunt with Garrett one time, and I did an instructional video. And one of the guys that were there, I told his story on a previous podcast, and because I liked it that he was from an inner city and he started working for them, and he, and now he's outside digging in the dirt just like everybody else. So I told that story because to me those kinds of stories inspire me, especially when it comes to, hunting or getting in the outdoors, because that's where I discovered God. I mean, I wasn't in a church building. I looked around and I did my little bit about the creation led me to the Creator. The Creator led me to the Bible. The Bible led me to Jesus, which I'm back to the Creator. I mean, That's kind of how this worked. So I mentioned him on the podcast. I called him Ruiz. And of course, I realize now that was not his name. So when I saw him,
Shocker.
Look, he had a T-shirt on and it said, "Digging with Ruiz." And he handed me one. He's like, so that was an embarrassing moment. Of course, we laughed.
You lost a new brand.
Yeah, but Phil, you said, "Why is this fun?" Well, see, that's the fun. We're digging with Ruiz. You don't see how that could be fun? Okay, maybe not. For you
those
who
of
are
you
just
listening, that was two hands in the air.
semi-eye roll, two hands in the air. Didn't want to hurt my feelings by saying absolutely there's no fun in that.
All right, so let's take a break. So while Jase was doing this digging with Ruiz in Canton, Texas, we were actually at your property, Jase.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were at your the whatever you call it now. Do you still call it a plantation?
Yeah, well, that's what it was.
Okay.
I mean,
I just didn't. With this politically correct world now, can you even say that anymore?
It's an old house.
It's an old house.
Began construction.
The oldest house in Monroe.
Yeah, in
our
1798. There's a sign on the door. And we've turned it into a place where people gather and celebrate in weddings and bed and breakfast.
Well,
and
we had a family celebration there, and so Dad came to the family celebration, but you thought you were coming to something totally different, right? I mean, what?
I thought it was they were celebrating because it's my birthday is April 24th, 1946. Size is
27.
Is April the 27th. 3 days later, 2 years apart.
Yep.
So I just thought it was Si's birthday.
So it actually,
And in turn would be your birthday. That's embarrassing. I've never known anybody go to their birthday party that turned out it wasn't.
it wasn't about
The only reason they said you ought to go because some people say you're trying to, you got problems. Yeah. So I said, okay.
You got problems.
What was
Well,
that?
if you don't show up, they may think you're trying to what's the word? Trying to
Duck out on them.
duck out on them. And
Big
I thought,
shot.
Big
Big
shot.
shot.
Yeah. So I thought, well,
They put the guilt trip on you.
yeah.
They tried that on me.
I was gonna say,
but I
that
said,
sounds like Miss K must have told you
That was her. She's the one. Yeah.
You got
If you
problems.
don't go,
yeah.
some of them liable to say, "Well, you mad at you ain't going." I said, "Oh, okay."
Well,
I'll go."
mom's down. She's down to using the tactic.
So I rolled in on a short stay, thinking it's his birthday. Somebody alerted me about halfway through the thing. I didn't stay for the fireworks. I was gone before then. But I just showed up where they say, yeah, Phil came because he's really excited about Si's birthday. But what I'm saying is the Robertson crew now, every other day or every 3 days at least, they're celebrating something as a group.
Well,
and this was so let me tell what it was.
So I just don't make all of the celebrations because in my mind, they're just kind of overdoing it.
So there was a celebration. Well, and you were right there because Si had 3 different things this week.
But before you clarify, Si's birthday is nowhere near
I know it's
the
like,
date.
It's 2 weeks.
It's in the same month. We're days,
Weeks?
almost
No.
a couple weeks
No,
away.
it was within 10 days of his birthday. I said
10 days, Phil.
I thought
it's
the
too early.
plantation would be tied up with weddings, and so they're going to work him in. Let's all remember Si turning 72.
Well, why
I said,
don't
yeah.
we just have a birthday in February and say, you know what, I'm going to be out of
Let's just
town
let's
in
catch
August. Let me just go ahead and at some point, if you're 10 days away from the birthday, it wasn't a birthday party.
So it was the 50th wedding anniversary celebration. Si and Christine have been married 50 years this year. And I don't know how close it is to their anniversary either. But it was their anniversary special is what it actually was. Dad didn't know.
Okay.
Until he was leaving. And so Dad starts leaving out after they, because at first they kind of have dinner and all that. So Dad's like, all right, I'm out of here. So Philip runs over to me. Philip is organizing this thing. We were about to do the blessings. Like I did a blessing. Teresa, his daughter, did a blessing. Scott and Marcia did a blessing. And then Jay Stone was a surprise blessing,
really?
which was really funny. But anyway, so Dad's leaving and Philip runs over. He said, I wanted Phil to stay here for this part. And I see him walking out toward his truck. He said, all right, we'll see you boys later. He said, should I go try to stop him? I said, Philip, let him go. I said, let him go. He's already making the walk. If you try to bring him back, it ain't going to be good. He's already made the call.
I know what Phil's words would have been. Do what?
Dad's not much on the party stuff. So anyway, then we did the blessings and they were good. And it was touching, Si's kids talked about their parents and what it meant to them. And the Stone gets up there and gets emotional.
Oh, really?
I was shocked. And he was tearful. Because he went through this whole thing with Si almost dying. And really and truly, he and Philip probably the only reason Si's still alive.
Probably so.
Yeah, because they made the effort to get over there and try to motivate him to get out of it.
What was not funny but interesting is when that happened, Si almost died. Jay come over to my house and Missy was I guess in Austin. It was just me and Jay, and Jay he got emotional a little bit, and then he kind of started like talking about our family, like what's y'all's problem? Like y'all are just acting like, oh, well, I was like, look, I'm not going to apologize or say, oh, you've got that wrong. I said, our family, we're like, okay, you lived a good life. We're just not that type of people to panic when death is.
And I didn't realize until Dad told Stone, because Stone called, Stone got shook up. So he calls Dad, he said, Bill, you got to call Si and talk to him and make him get out of that bed, because Dad's about the only one that Si will listen to anyway.
Yeah.
And so Dad said, hey, Stone, we got a code with the Robertson men. We don't call each other and tell each other what to do.
Yeah.
And so Stone said, well, don't you think it's about time to break that code? Because I think we're going to lose Si. And then Dad said, what's his number? And so Dad called him. You did call him. I don't know what you told him.
I went over there.
I basically
I went
told
over
him,
there
I
too.
said, look, I know you understand the resurrection. You're not worried about it. I'm not either. I said, so we're both on the same page there. We don't get excited when we're our time of departure.
If we think this is
If you're on the planet Earth and you know that your physical death is nothing but a departure, you put the tent aside, the body you're living in, it wears out, it gets old, car wreck, cancer, whatever, does you in. I mean, if it's a departure, that's a lot better than someone saying, well, we lost them. No, you didn't lose them.
Right.
You know, the Apostle Peter in 2 Peter 1, he made it perfectly clear.
Well, they say passed away.
Passed away.
Not really.
Not really.
No, not really. So we're looking at it from the resurrection standpoint.
We're looking at it that they fell asleep.
Fell asleep.
Transported.
But what was weird, Jace, is that I never realized until Stone told me that what Dad said. I thought about it. I said, Dad is right. I didn't know there was a code. Like it's not like written down anywhere. But that is a code. When do I call you and just say, I mean, we work together, we're brothers, but when do I call you and say, Jace, you need to start blah, blah, blah. I've never done that in my life to any of my brothers.
Me.
No.
But I didn't realize that was actually
I mean, we've
thing.
had a few things, I guess, from a spiritual standpoint that have come up. But
And we gave each other the permission when we all got famous, especially that, look, if one of us seems like we're going off the rail for whatever reason, we're saying let us know because we're on the inner circle. We did do that,
and
we've had a few moments.
Every brother, I've said, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I love you. I wouldn't do that, but I didn't like follow you around. I just said what I said my piece and moved on. But on something like that, because I mean, I went over there because I thought, well, I don't want to feel like, oh, I should have went by and saw him one last time. Because look, to be honest. I mean, look at Si. I thought, if he gets this, he ain't going to
We all thought he would die.
He ain't going to make it. Then I heard, well, he's, down, and he went to the hospital. I thought, well, I guess I'll see him one more time here before I see him again. So I pulled in, opened the door, and he was just laid up. And because that was, Jay was like, tell him to get up, walk around. I was like, well, he probably don't feel like it. But he's like, well, he's been down for days, So I was like, I think I brought him a pie, and I said, Si, you gonna get up? He went, nah. I said, Si, if you go down swinging.
That was kind of what I said.
What you told him?
Well, I said, they're saying you need to get up and move around. I know they said this virus makes you real tired
and depressed.
And I said, and whatever. And I said, but I said probably be a good idea, if you don't do anything but walk around the house a couple of times. Around, get outside, they'll walk. I said, I know. He said, I'm so tired, I can't even move. Yeah. I said, well, might be good to get up and move around. I said, look, I said, if the Almighty is, you fix to cash in, I said, there's nothing you can do about it. I said, but they're saying if you moved around a little bit, they think you might could beat with the coronavirus. I said, so whatever you think.
Yeah. Well, I said, go down swinging. He went, all right. And I mean, I left. That was it. It was 2 sentences.
That's about what I thought.
But he didn't look like he jumped up and thought, oh, great.
So he has COPD pretty advanced. And so he got on some oxygen. And now he uses oxygen at night. But he's come back, full circle. He's out doing his thing. He was having a big time at the thing the other night. He got up on stage and sang with the band.
I missed that.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty funny.
He had an outfit that had, what do you call them, sequins?
Yeah, sequin jacket.
Sequin jacket, and
had him a black cowboy hat on.
He looked like, right out of Nashville, nearly made it, but not quite, whatever.
That's pretty much what happened.
The sequin suit always, let you know, I may be one of them.
But I may not.
May not.
So let's take another break. So I guess, Jason, you were in Texas last week. That means you stayed in your Texas place for a few nights?
Yeah.
I did. You got to your new place?
Yeah.
So, which is always good. You're with your woman. That's happy. Makes a happier life.
Yep.
And from what I understand from Missy, in your Texas house is where you have your Helix mattress.
I do.
There. So tell us how good that thing is, because today we're talking about one of our sponsors, Helix Sleep.
Love it.
Comfortable.
Firm. I don't know. We actually brought that up. I said, I don't know if I'm sleeping so good because I'm just back with you or I'm in this bed. She was like, well, it better be the first one.
You sleep better when your woman is beside you.
Yeah, I don't sleep well when I'm not with her.
And so we're going to double that down and say if you sleep with your woman and you're on a Helix mattress, then there's no way to lose. So, I sleep on some as well in our Alabama place, and they are fantastic. What you do is you want to check these guys out. You go online, helixsleep.com/unashamed. They have like a 2-minute sleep quiz that we took just so you can tell them what kind of mattress you like it soft or you like it firmer. So they have a 10-year warranty. You get to try it for 100 nights, risk-free, which is great. You don't love it, they'll pick it up, but trust me, you're going to love it. So they're offering $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners if you go to helixsleep.com/unashamed. helixsleep.com/unashamed. $200 off, 2 free pillows. You can't beat it. All right, before Dad does this thing, I will tell you what I said, Jace, since you weren't there to defend yourself. And I did say, I guess since I'm on Jace's property, I don't need to throw him under the bus too far. But I said that Si and Christine, what meant so much to me was I was there and can remember. Probably I'm one of the few cousins. The first time we all met Christine, it's a long story in the family. It's been told, but I was actually remember the moment. It was in Ruston. Si had already married her, but nobody knew her. So he brings her in, which is a lot of pressure. Think about it, you're bringing your wife for the first time to meet the Robertson family, and you're already married. So my grandmother said, oh, she's lovely. And so everything moved forward. But I told him, I said, we spent those early years with Si. I said, and they used to keep Jace. So I told Si and Christine, I said, so everything that's quirky and different about Jace, it's all your fault. Of course, when I said that, it was a big laugh, and Si laughed. He said, I know, that named him after me, and we raised him those first few years. He said, that's why we don't get along. That's what he said. So we did talk about you, even though you weren't able to be there. I just wanted you to know that.
I mean, I think there may be some truth in that.
It could be. They're quirky people, and so is Jade. All right, so Dad, we got a question from Matt in California asking about when we share the gospel with somebody. Kind of how do we share with them? Is there some particular verse we like to harp in on or whatever? So you had some things, so share with us what you got.
Well, no matter who you're talking to, including atheists or anybody else, I usually start by saying something along the line of, 3 things that all mankind has in common. They all make mistakes.
Right.
They're all sinners. We break the law. And 2, not only does all men make mistakes and break the law, they all die.
Mm-hmm.
Right or wrong, whoever you're talking to, everybody dies, right, including you at some point from something, some ailment or whatever, old age. But we all sin, we all die, and we all count time by Jesus. And if you think about it a little bit, you say, let's see, count time by Jesus. So I would just recommend to you, what's his name, Matt?
Yep.
Matt out of California, just remember, you could just remind people that we all have these frailties, and we do all make mistakes, and we all do die, and that's fact, right?
Did we do what was the question?
What verses do you show?
What verses, or how do you share with somebody?
Now, you could give them Bible verses proving what I just said. There's a lot of them in the Bible. But you can just remind people, and really you don't need a Bible verse. There's plenty of them. Romans 3:23, all have sinned. But if you just tell them most people, if they're being honest at all, they all know that they made some mistakes and they're going to die one of these days physically. And it is 2021 years since Jesus showed up. Any way you want to slice it. So I would just kind of remind them of that just for food for thought. And the easiest way, Matt, is just take the last few pages in Matthew, the last 2 or 3 pages. You have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they're called the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They've waited, the world has, for 5,000 years. All of a sudden, beginning in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 people write down the same story about Jesus. If you go to the back of each one of those books, the last 2 pages in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, take those, Matt, and read them. And what you'll read is a minute details in the crucifixion of Jesus, his death on a cross. That solves that first problem. Everybody makes mistakes. Then the death of Jesus, his burial, and there's resurrection, there goes that second problem. Therefore, you just show them that, and then the 2 or 3 that you're going to need over in the rest of the epistles, starting from there, read in the book of Acts and find out what the apostles told people they had to do. They had the information. God becomes flesh. You read that in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's God on the earth. Jesus is here. Been waiting a long time for him to come, so he's here. He solved all of our problems. So you end up with verses like this. 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4 is a good one because it condenses it all down. I want to remind you of the gospel I preached to you, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, detail, which you received, so it's something you receive, and on which you've taken your stand. By this gospel you're saved, if you hold firm to the word I preached to you, otherwise you believed in vain. What I received, the Apostle Paul, earlier, walking on the road, I'm going to give to you as a first importance. I said that's the most important thing in the Bible. Jesus died, was buried, and raised from the dead. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John covers the minute details. The rest of the Bible keeps bringing that up. Jesus died, was buried, and raised from the dead. Solves your sin problem, solves your death problem, and you can live with peace of mind. He's there 24/7, back to where he came from, and all we're waiting for is the return. I said, you can do that with just a little bit of study, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, read the book of Acts, a few conversion stories. What were they told to do after they heard Jesus died, was buried, and raised from the dead? And the whole thing redundantly over and over and over. That's the story. Start there. Leave it up to them to research the rest of the material that contributes to those facts. So,
So would you say, because you mentioned 3 at the beginning,
it's not rocket science. You don't have to be a theologian. None
what
of
would
that.
be the word you use for the third? You said you said sin, and then you said death. And what would you call that? You're talking about once you become a Christian, you can still sin. So you still need the work,
The mediating
of Jesus.
work of Jesus.
The word I use for that sometimes is weakness. In other words, just because you're a Christian, I mean, you're going to quit sinning. You still need the blood of Jesus, in everything.
You're saved by faith, and you say, well, where does it come from? Well, faith, Matt, comes from hearing the message. That's Romans 10. So you read through the epistles, and it's going to show you how all it takes is trusting faith in Jesus, his death, burial, resurrection. He went back into heaven. He's there 24/7 to mediate, cleanse you of any sin you will ever commit in the future. Your past ones are removed when you put your faith in him. You died a sinner and are buried, be baptized in water. It's not complex at all, Matt. You just need to read the scriptures and get to where you read them so much that you can just quote them. They're part of your makeup. That's your life as you live this out. You love God and love your neighbor. You're out from under law. That's all going to come forth as you read further. But
I think people have a problem because they start trying to read from Genesis, all the way to Revelation.
That's right.
And life is difficult. And
That's
if
right.
you're looking at it that broadly, you just start getting distracted on what the point is. It's kind of like so big and so much.
A lot of history there.
It's
So
like
history,
It's
you're
like
like-
where do I start? Hang on, Jase. Let's take another break. Yeah, tell us your approach, because yours, I wrote down your question. You kind of do questions to people.
Well, I do, but I wanted to just say my principle has changed through the years, because I used to be just like that question.
Right.
I thought, let me get the verses all down, go from point A to point B and just kind of do it like some kind of ladder situation where leading a person to.
Well, we kind of learned it. I think the way I would put it is as a formula. Like, you got this, you got this, and that's kind of the way we years ago kind of presented it. But that's changed. That's changed.
And look, a lot of people came to the Lord over it.
That's right.
And so great, but I'm off that now. And so now when I hear a question like this, I think like in anything, in golf or just pick something. if somebody said, I'm going to give you some tip, give me the top 5 tips to becoming a better golfer. Because that's kind of what he's asking.
Right.
But the way this works, Jesus is like, how about I just give you the golfer who's an expert, not the tips. And to illustrate that, or you can make the same application like with fishermen. I mean, it's like if somebody asked me what to do to be a better fisherman, I could say, well, how about you just come with me and I'll show you. Well, they would probably say, oh, well, that's
even better.
So I think that's what Jesus was referring to. You got to remember when you see the word scriptures in the Bible from Matthew to Revelation, he was talking about
Old Testament.
Yeah, Old Testament.
That's all they have.
But when Jesus said in John 5, he said, you diligently study the scriptures because you think by them you possess eternal life. These are the scriptures that testify about me, yet you refuse to come to me and have life, which is my point. They thought, and we think, oh, well, just give me all these scriptures. But if you miss the fact that they point to a relationship, and this is relationship oriented, God is your Father, Jesus is your Lord, Savior, brother, the Holy Spirit indweller. And so I'll give you, for instance, because what Phil said is correct. I mean, the message, you're introducing Jesus to people as the image of the invisible God. And the most important thing he did as an innocent God in the flesh was he died on a cross out of love, and he came back from the dead. Because when you look at it from your perspective, those are your problems. He answered them. But to me, those are just the facts. It's still who he is that once you get to know, because the more you get to know his personality, his character, why he did, what he did, then him being on a cross is more moving. That's why this new show that's come out, The Chosen, and I brought it up 2 or 3 times. I mean, I am a huge fan of this because it's not really focused on Jesus. It's called The Chosen. It's about the ones that he chose to follow him.
Right.
So it's from their perspective. I mean, obviously it's about Jesus, but it's being filmed from their perspective. And it's so moving to me because one of the newer episodes come out, and to try to illustrate what the guy is the viewer's question here, is that they had this scene where, I'm telling you, the first half of the show, I was having trouble following. I was thinking, where is this in the Bible? I mean,
well, what I'm trying to get you to say
let me just
is
finish.
Keep it simple, Chase.
Let me finish this.
For Matt.
Well, I'm looking at the overall big picture, but I'm very passionate about this. And what they were doing is the disciples were arguing with each other, the disciples and friends, the people that Jesus has chosen. So they have this scene, and they're arguing, and some of them you're trying to kind of, oh, I agree with him, I don't agree with him, oh, I see his point. It's just one big argument around the fire. And so at the end, Jesus comes up, which he's been healing people. He's bloody, he's tired, he's just had a day. And the simplicity of this moment was they forgot who they were following here. They got so caught up in past mistakes, things that happened. And the show really never, it wasn't like it was quoting verses. It just gave you a picture of what Jesus does, which is when he was here, he worked, helping people in every capacity. You can read that in John. He said, my Father is always at work. I'm here to do this work. He's out there, blood, sweat, and tears. And they're taking it for granted by having these petty arguments, even the people that were right, over things that don't matter. And it was a real convicting moment. So having said all that, to keep it simple, I will quote verses that I think, like you mentioned about the questions. I will quote Acts 17 because I think if I had no belief in God whatsoever, that is a good section, starting when he said God does not live in temples built by hands, and he himself from one man.
Write that one down, Matt.
Yeah.
That chapter down, Acts 17.
It said he himself gave life to all men. From one man he made all nations of men. They should have the earth. He determined the exact times for them and the exact places they should live. Because I think when people read that, they think, oh, I'm here on purpose? Because you got to remember, most people out there, they just think they came from a salt water or just a chance. So when they read that. So then I encourage people, I go to the book of John. I encourage people to read the book of John and see what Jesus is like, which leads them to the death, burial, and resurrection, but who he is on a cross, who he is that came back from the dead, who he is I am, per se. Because you think about all the problems in life. What happens? Difficulty, disappointments. You don't know what direction to take. I'm thinking of words that begin with D, but demons of the past, whatever is going on. And then you have Jesus that says, I am. Well, that's appealing, because then you realize, oh, I've surrendered to Jesus. I'm a son of God. I have purpose. I'm a follower of Jesus. I have the Holy Spirit. I mean, all these.
My sins are removed.
Exactly. So that's my approach. I don't worry. I mean, I study this all the time, but I always keep Jesus as the image of the invisible God as the focus. Because people are different. They sit down, they have different questions. And so this could go 100 different ways, but I'm always going to get back to Jesus because he's the image of the invisible God.
Well, and everybody has to have a starting point. Let's take one last break. So what are your 3 questions, Jase? How do you get here?
How did you get here?
How'd you get here?
What are you doing here on the earth?
Right.
How did you get on the earth? What are you doing here on the earth? And how are you leaving the earth? I think those are 3 good launching questions for a Bible study.
Right. And mine, the way I sort of condensed mine, of course, I pretty much learned the same way Dad did, kind of looking at it from sin, death, and weakness. But I usually talk about why he came, what he did, where he went, and then what does he want from you? Because that's what most people are curious about. So I think all of us have a different way of introducing. But to your point, Judge, you have to start with Jesus, and people have to start there. And if you don't get that right, then everything else spins off of that. And then the verses aren't going to matter as much because you don't understand who Jesus is. So like my illustration I was thinking of when you were talking was like, because we do a lot of, we work with a lot of people that are coming out of drugs and alcohol. And, we have a 12-step program, called Celebrate Recovery that people go through. And the first step is you have to acknowledge who God is. But if you work those steps, but you really don't do that, in other words, if you really don't know who he is and that then he comes in your life, you can work the steps. You may even quit doing drugs for a while, but without Jesus really being the Lord of your life, without starting with that first step, you'll do good for a while. And then after a while, you won't, because Jesus never really started out on the right base. So I think that's why that was my illustration.
Well, it's a good point, because one thing I didn't say, but that made me think of this is, in the past 10 or 12 years, I always ask them early on, it's like, who is Jesus to you? And you will be amazed. Most of the answers, I would say 99% of the time, it's either a baby in a manger, a character in the Bible, a story in the Bible. It's like there's no emotion. There's no my Lord and Savior, and I will run through walls for,
Right.
No. And so you realize, they know about Jesus, don't know Jesus. So that's why if you just give them verses, they've heard the verses, but it's just it's a story. It's a manger. And then they're like, well, what's that got to do with my life? So that's why I said that at some point they've got to look at who Jesus is, forget what they heard in a personal, meaningful way, and say, oh, he's Lord and Savior. He's pursuing me. He's whatever these conclusions are that are more positive than he was a baby in a manger and we do Christmas.
Yeah.
Of course, what happens is then you share the verses and share Jesus. Then they're like, oh, yeah, well, I knew all this. I'm like, well, why was your answer so lack of passion and just, at the first, like.
So you got a guy from California. He's surrounded by unbelievers. So are we, no matter where you are. You're surrounded by unbelievers. So in all of that, these texts he's looking for, it's like, we have a podcast. It's called Unashamed. The reason it's called that, Matt, is that the text says Romans 1:16. We know where these texts are. A lot of people don't know where they are, including you. We're trying to get you to see that the text says, when Paul spoke to the Roman church, he said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it's the power, the gospel is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes. First for the Jew, then for the Gentile. That's everybody, Matt, on planet Earth. For in the gospel, the story of Jesus, his death, burial, and resurrection, in the gospel, what does it say? It's
righteousness from God.
Righteousness from God is being revealed.
First for the Jew, then for the Gentile. Which is your point, because we remembered that from memory.
There's verses for everything we do, but you've got to spend the time just to look these verses up, apply them to your life, and it'll all come together. But it will keep everything you read in the Bible. It's going to end up pointing to Jesus, who showed up 2,021 years ago. Without him, if someone has a better story,
well, because he's the
where did we
image
come
of God.
from? What are we doing there, and where are we going? If anybody has a better story, I'm all ears. What is it? And so far, Matt, no one has stepped up and said, well, look, I got a better story than that. And they elaborate on their story. I've not heard a better story.
Which is why we break down the Bible I've done it many times throughout the podcast, but it helps people understand the Bible. Because if you can take verses out of context, which people do all the time.
Oh yeah,
and just try
beware of the theologians, Matt. We're not theologians by a long shot.
So you got to look at it from before Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Jesus was here, but as Word, as part of God, he becomes flesh in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So the first section is
that's the biggest event in the history of mankind.
Yeah, Jesus is coming. That's what it's about. So because what bothers me a lot of times about people who use just verses, they'll go over to the section, like let's say Ezekiel or Daniel, that's in the section of the Bible that Jesus is coming to earth, and they're applying some of these prophecies that were made about Jesus coming to earth and establish his kingdom, look, to right now, to a future occurrence in their life.
But we don't want to send Matt Jase into the weeds. That's him getting in the people go to the weeds. Just stay out here on open ground and just look big picture. You're a human being on planet Earth.
You might be missing my point, though. I'm saying if you just say get some scripture, you got to realize if you're reading in the Old Testament, Genesis to Malachi, if you're learning those verses, you have to realize that's before Jesus came to earth. If you're reading Matthew through John, okay, he's here as showing who God is. And then now Acts on, or would be in our time period.
He left.
Well, he left, but all these churches started, all these letters happened. Really, when you think about from Romans to Revelation, a lot of those letters were written because people were having problems after they heard Jesus, after they responded, they started meeting with a group of people called a church, and problems arose. So Paul or Peter would say, hey, let me remind you of the gospel.
Which you seem to have forgotten. Yeah, I think it's all about motivation. It's a good question, Matt, because what we want to try to encourage people to do is don't approach the Bible as a way to prove or disprove things. Approach the Bible for how do I introduce someone to Jesus. I mean, that's our goal. Now, once you're in, you learn the rest of your life. As you said, you study more, you come across things. Every time I do a teach or preach a book of the Bible, I learn new things that I didn't know before.
No doubt.
And I've read this book and studied it and taught it for many times over.
Matt, yesterday for a story for you and what's going on and swirling around you, including California where you're from. Yesterday, a mother brought her son, and the mother brought the son there, and the son said, I'm terminally ill. She explained it to us. He has an illness, some kind of rare cancer or whatever, and it's a terminal case. He's not going to live, according to the doctors. So we prayed that God would heal him. We all knelt down and prayed that God would heal him. Then he's about 15 to 16, looked like. He said, you know what? He said, I'm going to put my faith and trust in Jesus, the one who raises the dead that y'all been talking about here this morning. And he put his faith in Jesus, and he was baptized. So now he's in a situation, Braxton is his name. Braxton is in a situation where even if God doesn't take away the cancer now, he is a child of God, which guarantees he'll be resurrected from the dead. So he came away. He's clean as a whistle for whatever mistakes he made. If God takes the illness, the disease from him, we would hope that he would do that. But if he doesn't, he's a child of the resurrection, and he will never die, according to Jesus.
I love it. That's why we do what we do.
You betcha.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by rating us on iTunes. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube, and be sure to click that little bell to get notified about new episodes. And for even more content that you won't get anywhere else, subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/unashamed.